Subscribe to Dr. Nightmare channel now.
Story 1. The rest stop that wasn't there. It was supposed to be a quiet overnight drive. Just the two of us, the open road, and a full tank of gas. My girlfriend, Haley, and I were headed from Reno to Salt Lake City. We'd waited too long to leave, thinking the drive wouldn't be that bad. But once we passed Elko, the night swallowed the highway, and the two-lane stretch of I-80 felt like driving through a tunnel of black velvet. No lights, no towns, no service. It was just before midnight when Haley started complaining that she needed to use the bathroom. Not in a next town kind of way, more like pull over now or it's going to be a problem. Just hold on, I said, glancing at the GPS. There's a rest stop coming up in 5 miles, called Cottonwood Hollow. Haley didn't answer. She was clenching her jaw and bouncing her leg furiously. We drove in silence, watching the distance shrink on the screen. 4.8 miles, 3.2, 1.1. And then, there it was. A rusted green highway sign read, Cottonwood Hollow Rest Area, next right. I flipped on my blinker and exited onto a curved ramp. As we rolled into the lot, I noticed something strange right away. The lights were on, but there were no cars, no semis, not even janitorial vans, not even litter. Haley jumped out before I came to a full stop and sprinted for the bathroom. I stayed in the car, engine idling. My phone screen had gone black and refused to refresh. No signal. I stared at the building. It was an old-style rest stop, flat-roofed concrete with peeling brown paint. A pair of vending machines blinked weakly outside, one flickering like it had been dying for decades. That's when I noticed the billboard near the entrance. Welcome to Cottonwood Hollow, population 6. Wait, what? I muttered. Why would a rest stop advertise population? I stepped out, stretching my legs. The air was cold and heavy, almost muffled. There were no crickets, no wind. The only sound was a low electric hum, maybe from the machines. Then, Haley screamed. Not a startled yelp, a full, blood-draining, lung-emptying scream. I bolted to the bathroom. The women's door was open, swinging gently. Inside, I found Haley backed into a corner, her hands trembling. She didn't even look at me when I asked what happened. She whispered, "I thought I saw feet." Under the stall door, bare feet, pale, standing the wrong direction. I looked. The stall door was open, empty. I opened every other door. Nothing. "No one's in here," I said. "They were there," she said again, more firmly now. "Facing the wrong direction, like someone standing backwards." I blinked, and they were gone. I nodded slowly, trying to comfort her, even though goosebumps were crawling up my spine. We left immediately. But when we returned to the lot, something was different. My car was still there, same spot, but now there were 4 other cars, parked in odd angles, all with their doors wide open. "What the hell?" I whispered. No one was inside any of them. Haley grabbed my arm. "We were the only ones here." "We were. You saw that." "I know," I said, watching the still air around us. "Stay close." As we walked to the car, something flickered at the edge of my vision. I turned. Near the trees, behind the lot, was a small figure, half in shadow, half in the wash of the vending machine glow. It stood completely still. Then it took a step forward. It was a little girl, maybe 10, wearing a white, old-fashioned dress with lace at the collar. Her skin was bluish gray, and her eyes were pitch black. She didn't see her. I grabbed Haley's arm and shoved her into the passenger seat. "Get in, now!" She didn't argue. As I fumbled for the door, I turned back toward the lot and nearly screamed. The little girl was now standing beside my car door. But she hadn't walked. She hadn't moved. She had just appeared. I jumped inside, slammed the door, and threw it into reverse. We peeled out of the lot, tires screaming. The rest stop disappeared in my rear view in seconds. And then the sign. Cottonwood Hollow, rest area, 1 mile ahead. I hit the brakes. "What?" I muttered. "No, we just left it," Haley whispered. "You saw that. We just left." We passed it again. Same rusted green sign, same curved exit, same exact lights in the lot. "We're stuck," I said out loud, not fully believing it. "We're going in circles." Haley was crying now, gripping the dashboard. "I don't understand," she kept repeating. I tried pulling up the GPS again. Nothing. My screen wouldn't even load. I kept driving. Faster now, pushing 85, then 90. And again. Cottonwood Hollow, rest area, 1 mile ahead. We passed the sign, the exit. Again. Haley began sobbing. I watched the clock. Each loop took 4 minutes exactly. No more, no less. After the third pass, I noticed something worse. Each time we drove by, another car appeared in the lot, and another little girl. Not the same one. Each one had different colored hair, different dresses, but the same black, empty eyes. By the 5th pass, there were 6 of them, each standing in a perfect line near the vending machines. The 6th girl was Haley. I swear on my life, she was Haley. Same red hair, same hoodie, but with those black, empty eyes. Haley saw her too. She didn't say anything, just covered her mouth and screamed into her hands. We didn't stop. I floored it, 100 miles per hour, then 110. Then everything stopped. No signs, no exit, just trees, darkness, and then a gas station. Like a flickering flame in the void, a rundown Sinclair gas station with lights on and a truck parked out front. I swerved in and parked, leaping out. Inside, an old man was watching a tiny black and white TV. He looked up at us without surprise. "You saw the hollow," he said. I didn't even ask how he knew. "What the hell is it?" I demanded. "Where were we?" He looked down at the counter and slowly shook his head. "Don't know. Ain't on any map. Ain't in this world either, far as I can tell." Haley leaned on the counter for support. "It's a place?" she asked. The man sighed. "It used to be a rest stop, long time ago. Burned down in the 70s. 6 people died. Town went with it. Only the name remains." My stomach dropped. The billboard. Population 6. They say if you stop there, you don't always leave. Some folks stay. Forever. Even if their bodies don't. He looked up at Haley with tired eyes. "Lucky you got out when you did. Most don't." We slept in the car that night, parked next to the gas station under the buzzing lights. We didn't speak. We didn't try to explain it. The next morning, we drove the rest of the way to Salt Lake City in total silence. I've checked since. I pulled maps, I checked local records, I even asked around online. There is no Cottonwood Hollow rest area on I-80. There never was. But I'll never forget those loops, or the sight of Haley, with black eyes, staring back at me from the edge of something I don't think we were ever meant to see.
Story 2, Mile Marker 103. There's an unspoken rule among long-distance drivers. Never stop near mile marker 103 on Highway 56. I didn't know that rule until it was far too late. My name's Lucas. I used to work for a cross-country delivery service. We transported fragile, rare items, stuff you don't trust with big corporate movers, custom furniture, vintage jukeboxes, grandfather clocks. I made decent money and got to see parts of the country most people never hear about. But I stopped driving 2 years ago. Haven't touched a highway since, because of what happened at mile marker 103. It was a Tuesday, late summer, scorching hot. I was heading east through New Mexico, bound for a drop-off in Kansas City. The delivery was a high-end antique bar made from refurbished wood, some Civil War-era piece going to a millionaire with a taste for old Americana. I'd been on the road 10 hours already, and was eager to make it to Dodge City before crashing for the night. The sun had dipped behind the horizon, and dusk had begun to melt across the sky. That's when I noticed a car behind me. Nothing unusual at first, a beat-up Chrysler, probably late 80s model. Boxy, black, no headlights. I figured it was just some idiot trying to save his battery, or someone with broken lights. Either way, it started tailgating. I shifted lanes, it followed. I slowed down, it slowed. Sped up, still there. Rinse, repeat. At this point, I was too seasoned to panic. Weird drivers come with the territory. But when I looked in the rearview mirror a third time, something made my stomach tighten. The Chrysler wasn't bouncing on the cracked highway like everything else on wheels did. It floated. No sway, no shudder, like it was gliding. And the headlights were now on. But they weren't normal. They weren't white or blue. They flickered softly, almost like flames, dull orange and pulsing. That's when I passed the sign, mile 103. It looked old, older than it should have. The metal post was bent slightly, and on the top corner, flapping lazily in the wind, was a scrap of notebook paper. Scrawled across it in thick black marker, "Don't stop. He's waiting." I let out a nervous laugh. A prank. Some sick teenager's way of messing with travelers. That's what I told myself. Until I looked in the mirror again. The Chrysler was gone. I mean, completely gone. Not fading into the distance, not pulling off an exit, just disappeared. Like a hole had swallowed it. The highway was silent. No headlights ahead, none behind. Just me and the open road. Then the pressure started. At first, it was a tightness in my chest, like standing too close to a subwoofer. My eardrums vibrated softly, and a headache crept in behind my eyes. I opened the window, thinking it was altitude or dehydration. The air outside was thick, dense, like breathing soup. And underneath it all was this faint humming, like electricity, or insects buzzing right under my skin. And then it got worse. Another sign passed. Mile 104. I slowed down. No, that wasn't right. I just passed mile 103. That was maybe a minute ago. I checked the dash clock, 9:07 p.m. Then I saw it again. Mile 103. Again. Same handwritten note. Same exact placement. Don't stop. He's waiting. I pulled the truck over. Something primal in my brain screamed not to get out, but I needed to check, to see if I was hallucinating, maybe sleep deprivation. I stepped out. The second my boots hit the ground, the humming got louder. The world felt smaller, compressed, like someone had wrapped the air in plastic wrap and pressed tight. I looked around. Empty desert in every direction. Moonless sky, no wind. Even the stars looked dimmer than usual. Then I noticed the sign had another piece of paper. This one stapled below the first. I don't know how much longer I have before it finds me again. I'm not sure if it ever lost me. But if you're out on Highway 56, if you see mile marker 103, don't stop. Don't slow down.
Story 3. Exit 237. They say you should never take exits that aren't on your GPS. Not when you're in the middle of nowhere. Not when it's after midnight. And especially not when you're lost already. We didn't know that at the time. Or maybe we did and just didn't care. It was me, my best friend Jared, his girlfriend Kenzie, and her cousin Mia. 4 college kids heading home from a music festival in New Mexico, road weary and wired on caffeine and adrenaline. We were taking the back highways to avoid traffic. Jared was behind the wheel, I was riding shotgun, and the girls were asleep in the back. The GPS had been glitchy for an hour. No signal, blank screen, no nearby towns, no highway signs, just desert and cracked asphalt stretching into infinity. And then we saw the sign. Exit 237, Black Ridge, half a mile. It looked weathered, rusted, like no one had touched it in years. But the letters were clean, fresh, painted in bright white. Jared slowed down. "Finally," he said. "I've got to take a piss and fill up." I blinked. "It's not on the map." "Neither are we," he shot back. We took the exit. The ramp curved down into a narrow stretch of road lined with dead trees and brittle fences. Everything looked abandoned, as if whatever town we were heading toward had been forgotten by time. Then we saw the "Welcome to Black Ridge" sign. It was wooden, cracked, and barely standing. Black Ridge. Pop 0. I laughed nervously. "Guess they're not big on tourism." Jared ignored me. We passed rusted gas pumps, empty stores, a barber shop with smashed windows, but everything was strangely intact. The glass in the buildings wasn't broken. There were no vines, no graffiti, just stillness. We stopped at a gas station near the center of town. The neon sign buzzed above, flickering green. Bell's Fuel. Open. Jared parked and got out. As soon as the door closed behind him, Kenzie sat up in the back. "Where are we?" "Some place called Black Ridge? Not on the map." Kenzie frowned. "I don't like this." Then the lights went out. All of them. Gas station, street lamps, dashboard. Total blackout. And then, just as suddenly, they flicked back on. And Jared was gone. I jumped out of the car. "Jared!" No answer. The gas station door creaked open slowly. Inside was pitch black. No cashier, no movement. I stepped in. "Jared, stop messing around." Still nothing. I moved past the shelves, each one perfectly stopped, Cans, candy bars, drinks that looked like they hadn't aged a day. I reached the counter and looked behind it. The back door was swinging slightly open. I went through. A hallway stretched out behind the station, unlit. The walls were lined with old photographs and dusty frames. I held up my phone flashlight. Every photo was of people standing in front of the gas station, smiling, families, couples, and Jared. One of the photos, dated October 1997, showed Jared standing by the pump, grinning, wearing the same clothes he'd worn today. My stomach turned. I backed up and ran outside. Kenzie and Mia were out of the car now, looking panicked. "Where is he?" Mia asked. I don't know, but I think he's..." And then we heard it. A voice. Jared's voice, coming down the street. "Hey guys, over here!" We turned. He was standing in front of the diner across the street, smiling, waving. "Where did you go?" I shouted.
"Young, laughing, taking the same exit." The sign now read, "Black Ridge, Pop 8. I don't remember how we escaped. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. They said I'd been found wandering near the Nevada border, sunburned, dehydrated, alone. Mia never turned up. No record of Jared or Kenzie either. No record of Black Ridge in any state.
Story 4. The Hitchhiker's Last Ride. I've driven long-haul freight for the better part of 20 years. Seen just about everything you can imagine from the cab of a Kenworth. Drunk drivers, meteor showers, tornadoes, car fires, naked lunatics, you name it. But none of that prepared me for what I picked up on Route 12 between Montana and Idaho. It was the middle of October. I was hauling a trailer full of construction equipment toward Coeur d'Alene, and I'd taken the scenic route, mostly because dispatch hadn't given me a deadline. The sun was dropping behind the tree line when I saw her. A girl, alone, standing just off the shoulder, arms wrapped around herself, wearing a jacket way too thin for the weather. Her hair was messy, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I passed her, slowed down, cursed at myself, and pulled off to the side. Something in me knew I shouldn't. Something warned me. But it was too late. She climbed up slowly into the cab, didn't say much, just nodded in thanks and buckled in. "Where you headed?" I asked. She looked straight ahead. "Anywhere but here." I chuckled awkwardly. "Well, I can help with that." We sat in silence for the first few miles. The only sound was the humming of the tires on asphalt and the occasional hiss of the engine brake. Then she said something strange. "Have you ever picked up a hitchhiker before?" I shook my head. "No, I usually don't. Just felt wrong leaving you out here in the dark." She nodded slowly. "You're kind. That's rare." I glanced at her. Her face was pale, too pale. Her eyes were sunken like she hadn't eaten in a while. But she didn't look scared or worried. She looked resigned. "Everything all right?" I asked. She didn't answer. Then, after a few more minutes, she spoke again. "You're going to hear things tonight. Don't stop the truck, no matter what you hear. I turned fully toward her this time. What? No matter what, she repeated. Even if you hear me screaming. My skin prickled. Are you in some kind of trouble? I asked. She turned her head slowly. Yes. And now, so are you. The trees thickened around us. Shadows spilled across the highway like oil. The GPS lost signal. I reached for the CB radio, but it only spat static. The girls sat perfectly still. No blinking, no movement. You've done something, haven't you? I asked. She shook her head. Not me. Then who? Her voice was barely a whisper. He wears faces. I gripped the wheel tighter. What the hell does that mean? He walks the roads, wears the faces of those he's taken. He can sound like them, move like them. Sometimes he's even in them for a while. I stared ahead, my throat dry. You're messing with me, I muttered. She didn't answer. And then it started. I heard footsteps in the trailer. I drive a sealed rig. No walkways, no side doors, just one giant locked metal box behind me. But I heard them. Clunk, clunk, clunk. Boots on metal, coming closer. Then came the whisper. Travis. That's my name. I looked at the girl. Her lips hadn't moved. Clunk, clunk, clunk. Travis, I'm cold. Let me in. My blood turned to ice. Ignore it, she said flatly. It's not real. But it sounds real. That's what it wants. I didn't stop. Not when the trailer began to bump like something inside was throwing itself against the walls. Not when the voice started begging. Not when it changed voices. Sounded like my father, my wife, my daughter. Daddy, open up. My hands shook. It's a trick, she said. But it's her voice. It's not her. And then, the worst part. The girl sitting beside me, she started screaming. Loud, raw, agonized. Please, Travis, make it stop. I nearly slammed on the brakes. But her eyes were still locked on the windshield. Calm, quiet. She wasn't moving. She wasn't the one screaming. I stared at her, then at the trailer, then at the road. And I didn't stop. Around 2 a.m., the noise faded. The trailer went quiet. The voices stopped. The girl turned and looked at me. You passed the test. I didn't say anything. She nodded. He'll leave you alone now. I blinked. What about you? She smiled faintly. He already has me. Then she vanished. Just like that. One blink, and the passenger seat was empty. I drove until dawn, not daring to stop. When I reached the way station outside Coeur d'Alene, I checked the trailer. The inside was spotless, except for one thing. A handprint on the wall. Small, bloody, upside down. I told the way station officer everything. He looked at me like I was crazy until I described the girl. He went pale. Said a girl matching that description had gone missing along Route 12 a decade ago. Hitchhiker. Never found. They say the road swallows people sometimes, that something walks its edge, hungry and lonely, wearing their voices, their faces. I still drive sometimes, but never after dark, and never, ever down Route 12, because if you do, you might see her. And if she climbs into your cab, drive. Don't speak, don't listen, don't stop. And above all, don't look into her eyes, because he might already be there, looking back.
Story 5. Highway of Hollow Eyes. I never should have taken that shortcut. But when you're running late, 6 hours into a solo drive, and your GPS says shaving 30 minutes off the route is just one left turn away, you take it. Even if it means leaving the freeway. Even if the shortcut has no name. And even if the road, the Highway of Hollow Eyes, doesn't exist on any map. I was heading back home from my sister's wedding in Oregon, driving south toward my apartment in California. The reception had gone late, and I left after midnight, figuring I'd pull over and sleep in the car if I got tired. At around 2:30 a.m., somewhere near the state line, the GPS glitched. I was in the middle of a forested area with no signs, no cell towers, and no traffic. Then came the prompt. In 500 feet, turn left onto alternate route. I almost ignored it, but my gas was low and I didn't feel like backtracking to the last rest stop. The map showed the route curving back toward the highway in 26 miles, so I turned. The road was narrow and cracked, almost like it hadn't been maintained in decades, but it was real enough. There were faded yellow lines, worn shoulder reflectors, and just enough gravel to keep me convinced I wasn't hallucinating. The trees grew thicker around me, forming a tunnel of twisting branches that scraped the roof of my car. I slowed to about 40, white-knuckling the wheel. That's when I saw the first one. A pair of eyes. Reflective, like an animal's, but too high off the ground. They hovered between two trees, locked onto me as I passed. I tried to convince myself they were just deer. Then I saw the second pair, and the third. Soon, there were dozens, lining the trees like ornaments, unblinking, silent. They watched me pass, every single one. I turned on the radio to kill the silence. Static. Then my own voice crackled through the speaker. Don't stop, Aaron. My foot slammed the brake by reflex. I stared at the radio. The voice had been me, but I hadn't spoken, and it had said my name. Keep driving, the voice said again. He knows you now. I floored it. The car shook violently, the road narrowing until branches scratched both mirrors. I was about to turn around when I passed a road sign, Welcome to Hollow Ridge, underneath in red paint. Population. Infinity. I gripped the wheel tighter. That's when the fog rolled in. Not mist. Fog. Thick. Dense. Greenish in color, like gas leaking into a sealed room. My headlights could barely cut through it. Every few feet, I'd spot a figure standing by the roadside. Shadowed. Featureless. Still. Then one stepped onto the road. I slammed the brakes. Too late. The car passed through the figure like smoke. The temperature dropped 10 degrees, Frost crept up the inside of the windshield, and I saw it. In the mirror, a face, pale, hollow-eyed, sitting in my back seat, mouth open, not breathing, not blinking, just watching. I didn't stop, couldn't stop. Every nerve in my body screamed to drive, but the road kept changing. The lines faded, the trees leaned in closer. Soon I wasn't even sure I was on a road at all. And then it spoke again. My voice. This is where you leave yourself behind. The radio crackled and died. The fog lifted, and I was no longer in the forest. I was in a town. Old buildings loomed on either side. No lights, no signs of life, just black windows reflecting my headlights, or so I thought. But they weren't reflections. In every window were eyes, hundreds of them, watching me, unmoving. I tried to roll my window up. It was already closed. Then the dashboard lit up. Warning, door open. I checked. All doors were shut. The warning disappeared. Then appeared again. Warning, door open. I locked every door. The temperature dropped again. I glanced in the mirror. The face was closer. Still in the back seat. Still staring. But now, it was smiling. I drove faster, desperate. Street signs blurred past, all with nonsense phrases. Return to static. Silence is watching. You aren't you anymore. I screamed, hit the horn, yelled until my throat hurt, but nothing changed until finally a light, faint and golden. Up ahead, an exit sign, green and glowing. Exit to yourself. No arrows, no ramps, just the words. I had one choice, drive through it or turn around. I drove. The second I crossed the invisible boundary, the world snapped back. Road noise, crickets, headlights working. I was back on the main highway. My GPS had signal. I was 6 miles from a gas station. No explanation, no fog, no face in the back seat. I laughed, then cried, then kept driving. I got home around noon the next day, slept for 12 hours, told myself it was exhaustion or a hallucination or some undiagnosed condition until the envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photo, a black and white shot of my car parked on that unnamed road, surrounded by faces in the trees, and one line written in red ink. The road remembers. Now, sometimes my GPS still offers me an alternate route, no matter where I'm going. It's always the same distance, always the same ETA, and always ends in Highway of Hollow Eye.